You are not just a recipe creator. You're not just a photographer who's sitting there taking notes and then creating whatever you've been asked for. You are offering more. You can offer more. And that is what can set you apart. And I think it might sound a bit overwhelming, but it doesn't have to be. I mean, you may not have thought of this, but just by being a photographer, you have the advantage of a creative mind. Then you have the skills to do more than pressing that shutter button. All you have to do is hone that skill, develop it, and practice it. When we begin to understand how powerful this can be, it changes everything. This is your host, Dyutama, but you can call me DJ. And I love to inspire food photographers to dream. I spent 15 years as an architect studying buildings and constructing hospitals before taking the biggest leap of faith of my life, which was setting up a food styling and food photography business right from scratch. If you're a dreamer like me, wanting to start a new photography business or grow your existing food photography business, jump right into a world where I share practical, actionable strategies to improve your photography skills, to work with clients, make more money, all with a fearless mindset. This is the My Food Lens podcast, and we take you one step closer to your dreams. So let's go. If you are in the industry as a professional food stylist, or you're a professional food photographer, or a recipe developer, or you're looking to take your passion further and start making dollars by working with brands, then I'll begin this episode by asking you a few questions. Okay? So here we go. When you approach clients or you're looking for clients, have you ever thought, why should a client hire me and not the next photographer? Why should a brand collaborate with me and not the next food blogger? Have you thought about that? Like, has this ever crossed your mind? Well, let me just first clarify that these questions are not really to, plant any kind of self-doubt or imposter syndrome related thoughts. There's no sort of negativity intended here. I'm not doubting you, but I'm actually helping, bring up these questions to identify what makes you different from the next photographer. What are you bringing to the table that they are not? What are you leaving the client with that they can keep coming back to work with you? And how are you differentiating yourself and setting yourself apart? Now, why we need to differentiate ourselves is like pretty obvious, right, boss? So that we can work with brands we love, so that we can make money, so that we can fuel our passion and have work coming to us consistently because of the name we built for ourselves in the market. So I'm not going to get into the importance of that, of why we need to differentiate ourselves. You already know how powerful it is when you can set yourself apart in the market and be unlike anyone else. That's the bomb, really. So I'll jump right into how to make yourself unique, how to make yourself memorable, and how to become a kind of a magnet for your ideal client. So being original, being authentic, true to who you are in the workspace or in the work that you create or in your conduct, your conduct in meetings or in your creativity. Being original, being authentic, being true to who you are is really the start, the foundation of differentiating yourself. Like without this, there's no differentiation on the table. Like this topic is not even on the table. You can have any skill, any talent, anything in the world, but it will not take you far. It will not take you far because it won't be true to who you are. And you, my friend, already know this too, right? Which is why I want to go one step further. The step after you've tapped into your authenticity, into your true self. What happens? Where does that differentiation begin? So I want to share with you this one practice that is like super easy to implement. And actually it comes quite naturally to most photographers. If you're thinking how to expand your services or how to make an impression on a client or how to offer more to your loyal clients, this one practice will hopefully leave you with some strong thoughts. Now, stay with me as I say it and don't roll your eyes. Okay? Don't roll your eyes. Don't choke on your coffee. Please just keep listening. It gets interesting once we get past these words. So, the one skill I want to share with you is called interpretation and conceptualization. I know it's a mouthful, but I promise you it's not as intimidating. I always feel like, a food photographer's role is not just about setting up a camera, pressing the shutter, and taking a photo. It's so much more. I mean, we have this huge opportunity to add value to a client just by tapping into a skill that we might already have. Exactly. That skill is all about understanding, getting into the skin of the brand, and creating their vision innovatively, like creatively. All right. So, again, don't get lost into these words. Please let me explain. Stay with me. Don't choke. Don't roll your eyes. Okay, here we go. When I was in architecture, all right, we would quite often have to compete with other architecture firms to bid for large projects. These were like large, giant firms going head to head with each other and each one, excelling in their field. So imagine how tough it must have been for the client to select from a pool of only the best. Well, you know what it came down to, right? It came down to who could differentiate themselves. You're sitting among the stars, and how does one star shine more than the other? So, going back to the architecture story, it was definitely about the budget, but also how well we could take the requirements of the client and come up with some creative solutions. Who was listening? Who was really reading between the lines to come up with the best possible creative idea? Now, that was a huge differentiator. And this was a practice that I never forgot. And this is a practice that I have brought forward and I use it so much in my photography business. It's been a game changer. And that's why we are talking about it today, my friend. All right. So, you know how sometimes we complain that the project didn't have a brief or the brief wasn't clear? Well, guess what? That's your opportunity. That's your opportunity to shine. So when clients don't have a brief, what do? You create one. If the brief is not clear, what do? You add clarity, you add details, and you present it back to the client. Show them that you're not just a shutter button presser. You are thinking with them. You are sometimes more than them. Show them that. Some clients are very good at communicating their requirements and they have a good, clear art direction for their project, but some don't. And if you can hone your skills to be able to come up with that art direction for a project by really understanding the requirements of the brand and by asking the right question, boom. Who wouldn't want to work with you? I want to work with you. I want to work with you. Not only are you providing the client with beautiful images, you understand them and you understand the story so well that they will automatically trust you and they will want to work with you again and again and again. That's what we're talking about, boss, right? So interpreting a client's need creatively and accurately, and then conceptualizing a photo shoot that meets those requirements. That is the game-changing practice that I'm talking about today. That is a real differentiator. And how many people do you think really can do that or are doing that, right? In my capacity as a food photographer, I've actually been part of marketing campaign discussions with clients, with my clients, because they know that visuals are a large part of the marketing campaign and they want me to step in. They want me to step in, like either with some creative thoughts and ideas for their visuals or just to do a pulse check whether their ideas for the photos actually match their vision for the campaign or not. And that there's no disconnect, right? So, for example, if they are creating a seasonal campaign for a winter menu, let's say their winter menu, and they're looking at colors like blue or green, I'll immediately step in. And I'll suggest warmer tones because winter is all about being cozy. We want people to feel the warmth when they look at the images, when they look at the food, the colors. So a warm orange or a beige or browns, maybe wood would be my suggestion. Haha, would be my suggestion. Got it? Yeah. All right. Stay with me. Don't choke. All right. So warm orange, beige, browns would be my suggestion. And honestly, this has really happened to me. This happened. This was one of the marketing discussions I was part of. And as soon as I put out that suggestion, the client realized that there was a disconnect between the purpose of the campaign and the art direction. Colors, purpose, audience, like we can weigh in so much capacity. Sometimes a contribution can be as simple as this, or sometimes we have to do the entire work. It's a little bit more complex, a little bit of more heavy lifting. So, I was hired as a photographer for a new restaurant. So it was a shoot for a new restaurant in town, and they were part of this huge hotel chain. It's a global hotel chain. I think it's 5 or 7 star. I can't remember. The bottom line is that it was a pretty big deal. And because it was a new restaurant, they needed someone who could do everything, right from deciding how many photos to take, what style, mood, colors, size, what goes into social media, what should make it into a press release, how to plan photos for the website, like every single detail. They wanted someone who could do that kind of thinking, like that level of micro to macro to detail to big picture thinking, like everything. And not many photographers really work on that skill. Most photographers, they'll focus on technical skills, and that is where it begins and ends for them. But imagine if you could be a thinker, an art director, and a visualizer. That would not only make you unique and set you apart, but also imagine how powerful your photography would be, because you would know exactly how to represent the brand, and the client would love it because you not only did all the heavy lifting, but you nailed it. You nailed it in your photos because you understand them. You think someone else would ever be able to take your place? Not so easily, not so easily, which is exactly what happened at a restaurant shoot. Like I was able to direct the photo shoot, get approvals, and almost like educate the client on what would work for their premium, fancy, high-end restaurant. So just having that skill and of interpretation and conceptualization, it differentiates you. Clients want to work with you because you bring a skill that not every photographer in the market has. You are unique to be able to do such a wide spectrum. Your spectrum is large and yet cohesive. That is important. It creates more job opportunities for you, because there could be a large scale project where you could only do art direction. That also happens. You could just do that and still make money. So you could double up your skills and fit in exactly where you're needed. I mean, you have so much potential to add value to a client's campaign. Not everyone can. So if you have more skills, you have more opportunities to contribute. I remember I once worked with a top Southeast Asian gourmet magazine, and my role was art director and food stylist. I was not the photographer boss. We had another photographer on board, right? So I did everything for the art direction, and then we were on the set. Then I was the food stylist. I was also making sure that everything was going as per the approved art direction. And I was also guiding and talking to the photographer through it. So there you go. I tapped into my skill of interpretation and conceptualization and then food styling. And I think it's definitely one of my most memorable projects because I was able to offer that wide spectrum to the client. But why am I telling you this? I'm telling you this because you are not just a recipe creator. You're not just a photographer who's sitting there taking notes and then creating whatever you've been asked for. You are offering more. You can offer more. And that is what can set you apart. And I think it might sound a bit overwhelming, but it doesn't have to be. I mean, you may not have thought of this, but just by being a photographer, you have a solid advantage. You are at such an advantage. You have the advantage of a creative mind. You already have it, right? You already have it, and you have the skills to do more than pressing that shutter button. All you have to do is hone it, hone that skill, develop it, and practice it. When we begin to understand how powerful this can be, it changes everything. It changes the way we present ourselves to our clients. It changes the way our clients perceive us, the way we begin attracting clients, and the reputation we begin building in the market. And above all, if we build that kind of reputation, you know what happens? We become different. We get hired and not the next photographer because we are not like the next average photographer. We become more than just food photographers. We become more than just photographers. We become creative thought leaders. And boy, that alone is big enough to set you apart, even if you are in a room full of talented photographers. I really hope that this inspires you to explore that side of your creativity. You know, the next time a client comes knocking and you see the opportunity offering this service, do it. Don't hold back. Do it. Even if you don't get the job, the one thing I can guarantee is that the client will never forget you. You'll always be the photographer who did more than asked. And you never know, when the situation changes, that client might return to you. Whatever that turns out, that is irrespective. Whatever that turns out, the bottom line is that by bringing forward your creative perspective, you are successful. If a client comes and you can offer them that, you were successful. You successfully differentiated yourself and opened the door to possible new opportunity. You set yourself apart. You differentiated yourself. You were unique because what you offered, not everybody can or could, right? And that's exactly what we want. It is one powerful practice, one powerful skill that we can hone. And the best part is, it's so natural to us. It comes naturally. We all have it in us. The only difference is you know that you have it in you and the next photographer doesn't. So tap onto it and go get them, right? Well, I hope you found this episode helpful. And if you did, please don't forget to rate, review, and subscribe. You know, I honestly request for this after every episode because your subscribing and your reviews and your ratings makes this podcast go forward. And it really encourages and motivates me to create better content that will serve you in the best possible way. So please rate, review, and subscribe on whichever platform you are listening. And if you have a question about art direction or food styling or job opportunities or how to make yourself unique, you know where to find me. DM me on Instagram at Dyutama_myfoodlens or send me an email on hello@myfoodlens.com. With that, I'll see you next week. Bye-bye.